I wrote a song that I never recorded because I felt it was wrong, but it was called From the Fucking Cotton Fields to the Plague Fields.
Yeah.
So my point is that, yeah, so what?
I would say that
us white people love to have black people entertain us.
I would say that the playing fields are a lot better than the cotton fields. That's what I would say about that. Maybe I'm crazy, John, but it seems like making no money as a slave picking cotton was not as good as playing left field for the Yankees.
All right, so we have a interesting video about racism. Bill Maher, he's debating John Mellencamp about racism in America. And generally, whenever you see discussions about racism, it usually ends up to be, if you're on the left, you're talking about racism is pervasive, systemic, and we're still living in 1950 Alabama, or they'll even say, we're living in a slave state, right? The United States is still, we're all slaves. And then on the right, you'll have the next extreme where this is a race utopia, racism is dead, there's no racists alive. And both sides are essentially just ridiculous. So let's hear how this discussion goes, because from that clip, it seems like John Mellencamp believes that we're all slaves. I don't know how you get there, but let's see what he's got to say.
Just give me an example, and then I'll get off this. But I'm just curious of a recent example in the last couple of years, specifically of a incident of racism that you saw, like on tour or something, that is in this.
I have a 29-year-old son. One of his best friends was black. Right? They went somewhere in Los Angeles. The guy got in an argument with this little skinny black kid, waited for him to walk outside of the bar, and ran him over and killed him. How much more of a fucking example do you want?
I'm sorry, people. I just don't know how that's an example. Because they got into an argument, the guy drove over him. To show that it was racism, you would have to show that either the guy who drove him was white and on top of that, was motivated by race. Like he just, I hate black people. But right now, I don't know if this example even makes sense, because how do I know the guy driving the car wasn't black himself? And it seems like this was motivated by the argument, not by the color of the skin of the victim. So maybe I'm missing something, but people, let me know. This does not seem like an example of racism. He's just saying it's racist because the kid who died happened to be black. I don't think he was killed because he was black.
Yeah, I'm not denying that things like that happen in this country.
But I'm just saying it's not any better. I mean, you may.
Well, that's what we're arguing about. I think
we're not arguing about anything. We're having a discussion.
Well, we're disagreeing.
No,
and that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay to disagree.
You say it in one of your songs.
Yeah,
freedom of speech.
Yeah,
right.
I wrote a song that I never recorded because I felt it was wrong, but it was called "From the Fucking Cotton Fields to the Plague Fields."
Yeah.
So my point is that, yeah, so what?
I would say that
us white people love to have black people entertain us.
Okay. Is Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Serena Williams, Tiger Woods, are they essentially slaves? Is that the argument? I think that's his argument. They're essentially slaves. But then he's an entertainer too. Is he a slave? Maybe he doesn't consider himself a slave because he's white. But if you're doing the same thing as the other slaves are doing and getting paid for it, then he's a slave too? I don't get it. I don't get it. This absolutely makes no sense. And this is what I keep saying. I think when it comes to the Democrats and a lot of these left-wing politicians, they need you to believe racism is this bad. They need you to believe that. And the reason why is because their paychecks depend on it. Right? Their paychecks depend on you believing racism is this pervasive. If people just admitted that racism was not that bad, a lot of these race hustlers will lose their jobs overnight, right? Oh, okay, it's not that bad. All right, yeah. Why are we paying you? And the reason why is because they need to keep racism up. They need to keep it on top of mind so they can get paid. And people like this are eating it up. Really? How dumb is this? How dumb is what he's saying? This is as dumb as it gets. I'm sorry, people.
would say that the playing fields are a lot better than the cotton fields. That's what I would say about that. Maybe I'm crazy, John, but it seems like making no money as a slave picking cotton was not as good as playing left field for the Yankees.
Let's just be honest here. Like Bill just said, slaves made zero, right? We're talking about billion-dollar athletes. We're talking about athletes who've made hundreds of million dollars, more money than most people will ever see in their lives, versus a slave who made no money. And he's saying that they're modern-day slaves? You guys know how to pick these videos. You guys know how to pick these videos. This is like upsetting now. This is like, really? Is this like, really? Yeah, this is really happening, people. They're really having this conversation.
I mean, I'm sure there were, reasons why. Dave
no,
Winfield has some beefs against Steinbrenner, I'm sure.
No doubt there is 1 or 2% of black people in America who have a better life.
John Mellencamp doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. So he's saying only 1 to maybe possibly 10% of us black people who are all free to do what we want today, only about 10% of us are better off than we were when we were slaves. This is the sickness. This is the sickness I'm telling you about. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He has no concept of reality when it comes to race relations. He just believes the talking points. Black people are worse off today than they were when there's, matter of fact, only 1% of them. Really? He just essentially erased the whole history of Martin Luther King, the Civil Rights era, affirmative action. All that is nonsense, right? Me being a black lawyer, it's all nonsense. The only thing that we've accomplished is that we're still slaves. This is pretty bad. This is. I honestly feel sorry for John. If he feels this way, I kind of pity him. Because he's not living in reality. That is not the reality that I live in. Sorry, John.
That's what you think? 1 or 2%?
Okay, let's say 10%. I'm just pulling a number out of my ass.
It is that's where it belongs.
Okay.
Yeah, that number is definitely being pulled out of your behind.
I just pulled a number out of my ass.
I know, but I'm telling you, that's just not true. But,
Well, okay, well.
I mean, that's...
Listen.
Well, to be fair, this is, this guy's no academic scholar. He's just, but the thing is that it's fascinating because this is what he thinks. This is really what he thinks. He's just been totally fooled. He's been totally fooled. And, I'm believing that he wants to be an ally. He wants to be on the right side of history, but he's just talking nonsense and stating it as it was fact. No, the 100% of black people who are free in America today are not just a little bit better than the people who were owned by other people as slaves. Back when slavery was around, something like 98% of black people were owned by other people. He's saying that we're living in those same dire straits. Make it make sense, people.
We do have statistics.
Talk to my son. He'll tell you.
Well, he saw one very horrific incident. Maybe that has colored his thinking.
What do you think? That's the only incident that happens?
Of course not. And it isn't. Again, the FBI has data on hate crimes.
The FBI?
Oh, they're in on it?
No, they're not in on it. But it's like the government. You trust the government?
So now, after he throws out wild statistics on, we're just as bad as only 1% of black people are doing better. Everybody else is still living like we're living like slaves. Now he's like, Bill Maher's like, we have statistics from the FBI. Don't trust the government. Like, you can't win. You can't. There's absolutely no statistic, no fact, no evidence that's going to convince him that he's wrong about this. Ask his son.
I don't trust those fucking people. I'm willing to throw them.
No, I've been often a skeptic of lots of things about the government. But do I think the FBI is making up hate crime statistics? No. Do I think they're exactly as they present them? No, I don't, because...
Okay, if they're not making them up and they're not presenting them honestly, what do you
it's
call
somewhere
it?
in the middle. For example, they found out like a year ago that the coroners were kind of in cahoots with the cops on reporting deaths when police kill somebody.
I believe it.
Right.
So this is a classic example of confirmation bias. He believes it when it confirms his biases. He doesn't trust it when it challenges his biases. That's exactly what this is. This is the textbook example of confirmation bias. I believe it. When it shows the hate crime statistics, I don't believe it. They don't confirm what I already believe. That's crazy.
So there's what I'm saying. I'm acknowledging it's not exactly the data that they're always giving us, and it was infused with that would-be systemic racism. I'm saying we have moved on from that, not completely, and the FBI is not the cops. So when the FBI compiles data on hate crimes, I'm like, yeah, this might be roughly where it is. I don't think it's crazy off. I think I think there's mostly FBI people are squares, and there's plenty of people of color in the FBI.
Now, one thing Bill's not going to tell you, because, we can look up the FBI statistics on hate crimes. Let's do that right now for fun. So here is the Department of Justice Hate Crime Statistics 2021. FBI releases hate crime statistics. So now, just so we all understand, white people make up about 60% of the population. Black people make up about 13% of the population, but we can say 60-40. 60% of the population is white, 40% are people of color. So we can look at this. So 64% of hate crimes are based on race, 15% sexual orientation, religion, blah, blah, blah. So we have all these hate crime statistics, bias motivations, race and ethnicity. You got 4,000 that happened in 2021. So offense by crime and category, and if the known offender. So this is letting us know if the person, if they know the race of the offender, what they're going to be. So out of the 6,312 known offenders, 56% of them are white. So it's about 3.9 percentage points under the population. So white people are slightly underrepresented in the numbers. Black people, who are 13% of the population, are overrepresented in the numbers. But to him, he's going to tell you, he doesn't believe these numbers. So it's fascinating. Black people are overrepresented in the crime numbers, overrepresented in the hate crime numbers, while whites are actually underrepresented in both those numbers. Wow. But this means nothing because it doesn't confirm his bias.
Now, they've also had complaints about racism in the FBI.
Plenty of.
Yes, as there is everywhere.
Plenty of cops.
And they're valid.
Plenty of guys, plenty of black people are ahead of police departments across the United States, and we're going to have to disagree on this, Bill.
Yeah, and we can.
Yeah, I just.
You think I'm going to throw you out?
No, I just think that. I just think that being open-minded about what's really going on in the streets, as we said here.
Oh, I'm open-minded. Are you?
Do you really think our government has improved since they killed Kennedy? Do you really think that?
Well, that's such a broad.
That Oswald killed.
So we're going back 60, right? 70 years ago? The government improved since Kennedy? Wow.
Kennedy, you think so?
Wait. That's such a broad question. Our government has improved. What parts of it?
Any of it.
Any of it.
Any of it.
No, it's pretty, politically we have gone downhill.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely.
That doesn't mean people's lives are worse, because culture is a different thing. And America has moved on a lot culturally, which includes race, gender, homosexuality. I mean, homosexual marriage, gay marriage, was on the ballot in 35 states up until about 2014. It failed in every one. And then the Supreme Court said it was the law of the land.
It shows you how funny this, even California, gay marriage failed in California. Shocking.
You don't see that is progress. You don't see that things.
And let's talk about, also the civil rights movement and all that other stuff. But he acknowledges none of that. We're still slaves.
Are different. It's not perfect, but we made it.
Here's my answer to that.
I mean, you're so cynical. I
I
can't believe I'm saying that.
Here's my answer to that. It's about fucking time.
Okay, well, great. We'll elect you the timekeeper then. Of course it's about fucking time. Everybody's late on everything. We're, as Joe Friday used to say on Dragnet, we're recruiting from the human race. Yes, we're all schmucks and we're all late. Obama was late on gay marriage. Kennedy was late on civil rights. Lincoln was late on slavery. Everybody's always late. Biden's late now on pot. Everybody's fucking late.
Hold on for a second. I, unlike you, do not believe a fucking single word that comes out of any of that.
Except when they confirm your biases. You know, it's interesting. Watching this is so fascinating to me. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I deal with this with liberals all the time, talking about essentially how we still live in racist Alabama from the 1950s. I deal with that all the time. I'm literally, you'll probably even see it in the comment section of this video where they'll call me a coon. They'll say I'm racist against my own people, that type of thing. And I say my people are American people. You know, I don't separate like black people are my people and white people are not my people. They're all my people. Right? If you're an American, you're my people. I think the problem is that you have race grifters who need to have you believe racism still exists in a pervasive form. And the reason why they need you to believe that is so they can make money, right? If racism didn't exist, they have no job. So they have to put you in a position to believe that racism exists. And I think the Democrats who play identity politics need you to believe racism is a problem so you can go vote for them, right? That's the reason why most black people vote for Democrats. It's not because they align with their values. It's because they believe the Republicans are racist. I'm sorry, people. That's just the way it is. The reason why most black people vote Democrats is because they believe the Republicans are racist. They really do. And no matter what you try to instill in them, hey, listen, you know, if you, and really think about this, people. Most black people are Christian conservatives, right? They don't believe in gay marriage. Matter of fact, they're against the LGBTQ plus agenda, but yet they throw all that away and pull the lever for a Democrat. Why? Because they believe the Republicans are racist. And the Democrats are smart. When it came to civil rights, right, and it became the Martin Luther King, those were Democrats who passed those things, right? Even though there were Southern Democrats against it, those were Democrats who passed those things. And when it came to Obama ran as a Democrat and he won, the first black president. Guess what? He ran as a Democrat. So what that did is it put blinders on. And people are still suffering with that today. Is that it doesn't matter about the facts. It doesn't matter that if you line up all the issues for black people, they'll check the Republican box. Except when it comes to race. Then, okay, I'm with the Democrats. I'm going to vote for the Democrats, even though I don't believe in most of the things that they present. That's why I think now you're starting to see a little tide turn where I think more people are starting to just wake up and say, hold on. Why am I voting Democrat? Why am I voting this way? Because at the end of the day, I think there's a reality that has to eventually hit. Is that a lot of times we're just being played. I think the black voters are being played. Just like I think Hispanic voters woke up. They woke up in Florida. Hispanic voters woke up. They found out, well, you know what? The Democrats are playing us. Why are we voting Democrat all the time? Why? And they flipped and voted for Republican, and you see Ron DeSantis won by a landslide, right? And I think black people need to wake up and say, why are we throwing away our votes for Democrats? They can't win without us. They can't win without us. So guess what? We should then say we're going to hold our vote hostage and figure out who's the best to vote for. Who's going to give us what we need to succeed? Is it Republicans or the Democrats? Who aligns more with our values? It's interesting. Maybe I think a week ago, maybe a week or 2 weeks ago, I was arguing with someone over systemic racism. And they were saying, Nate, we saw your video and you said systemic racism doesn't exist. You don't believe systemic racism is real. I said, yeah, I think systemic racism, I think that's a boogeyman. So they said, well, how do you explain George Floyd? So I said, I don't think George Floyd was killed because he was black. And it was like, shock. What are you talking about? It's obvious he was killed because he's black. So I said, well, did you read the indictment? No, we didn't read the document. Did you read any of the court documents? No, didn't read anything. What about the charges? Did you see any of the charges? No. He's murder. I know he's guilty of murder, but I didn't read any of the charges. I said, well, I did. I read them all. And nowhere in any of those documents did it even allege that he was killed because he was black, right? So they were like, well, that doesn't mean that this is a deeper meaning. I said, so you're telling me the black attorney general in Minnesota with the biggest case of the century, right? Because you saw it was worldwide protest, the biggest case of the century. If he had any evidence that he could prove that Chauvin killed George Floyd because of his black, you don't think he would have charged him with a hate crime? You don't think he would have said he was killed because of his black in all the court documents? He gets a life sentence if he could prove that. But there's nowhere in those documents did it say that George Floyd was killed because he was black. I'm sorry, nowhere. It didn't even allege it. Tell you know what I was? Oh, Nate, you're just a coon. Because I read the documents? Because it doesn't say that in there? And that's your best example? Oh, well, why do you think people were protesting? I said people were protesting all across the planet because they bought into the narrative. And the narrative was that George Floyd was killed because he was black. That was the narrative. Just like back before the turn of the century, back when what's his name, Galileo was alive, most people thought the earth was flat, right? That doesn't mean they were right. That's what they believed. So just because so many people believe it doesn't make it true. And a lot of people out there believe what you're saying and believe that shows systemic racism, but it just isn't true. It's verifiably not true. And that's why I do what I do. That's why I review these videos. That's why I have these conversations, because I think facts matter. And I think facts should win the day. But there are certain things that no matter what you say, what facts you present, like this guy, John Mellencamp, he doesn't care about the facts. Like you saw facts that support his theory, I believe it. Facts that don't support his theory, do you believe the government now? Well, you just believe the government when the facts supported what you're saying. When they don't, you don't believe them. That's what the fight always is. And it's not just really left. It's both left and right. Both sides ignore facts that they don't like, right? Or spin it the way they want it to come out. I understand that. But I think in this particular moment, when it comes to the reality of the situation, if you were to ask someone, give me an example of systemic racism today, I bet you the example they give is going to be some nonsense example. Some nonsense example that's easily debunked. And then when you debunk it, they then label you as the racist. And that's the world we live in, people. Well, tell me where I'm wrong in the comments section. My name is Nate the Lawyer, and I'll see you next time. Peace.